Hi, and welcome to Win-Win Women TV. My name is Patricia Stepler, and this is Your Inside Power, where we look at how you can change your life by utilizing the powers that you have inside of you. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Teague, who is a fellow Pennsylvanian, and she has over 15 years of experience as a speaker, a trainer, and a coach. And Michelle's conducted trainings and spoken internationally and from one coast of the United States to the other. She's given thousands of presentations on topics such as you can have it all, communicating with difficult people, which is always a challenge, and breaking through boundaries. Her accomplishments include speaking or presenting at various conferences and developing leadership training for new supervisors and managers. She volunteers with organizations such as American Cancer Society, Relay for Life, WICA, the Pittsburgh chapter of National Speakers Association, Scottsdale Business and Professional Women's Club. Michelle is the mother of 2 adult children. She lives in beautiful Mount Pleasant, Pennsylvania with her husband, Jim, and their lovely dog, Molly. Michelle, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you today as a guest.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So your specialty is in, speaking with people about goals, purpose, boundaries. What would you like to share? What are some nuggets of information that you've learned that can help our guests today?
First and foremost, I would say you need to know what your core values are. That is going to be what matters to you most, because what I've found happens is people will set goals for themselves, or worse, somebody else will set a goal for them. And when it doesn't really line up with what their core values are and what matters to them most, even if they achieve that goal, they don't feel very satisfied. They don't feel like they've actually achieved something. And that's because it really doesn't matter to them to begin with. It's when those goals line up with what matters to us most. It's when those goals line up with what our core values are that they start to become significant for us.
So what are some important core values that you see that people that are really successful seem to have?
Well, a lot of people will tell me that their family is one of their top core values. And what I have my coaching clients do is first figure out what their core values are, but then take a look at how they're living their lives. And I'll ask them, are you actually living your life around these core values? So if you tell me that your family is important, and then you are only spending a few hours at home with your family every week, how is that living that core value of family? How is that living that in your life? How is that showing up in your life? And that's where people find that maybe what they're doing doesn't necessarily correspond to what is important to them. And that's when they need to make some changes. The reality is your life's going to be a whole lot happier. You're going to be a whole lot happier if you are living according to what matters most to you.
Do you see that where when people are not living with the core values, that's where that frustration and stagnation kind of comes into their lives?
Yes. I find that when they're not aligned with what matters most to them, that's when they're the most frustrated. That's when they'll reach a part in their life, like you said, where they're either stagnant, there isn't a whole lot of growth going on, or what happens just really doesn't seem to matter. They become very apathetic about what's going on around.
Yeah, and they seem like they're a little hopeless. And that's something I see in people. They just have that hopelessness, like nothing's ever going to change.
Exactly. And so one of the first things I ask them to do is to analyze, what's important to them and how are you living your life? Because if how you're living your life doesn't line up with what is important to you, that's a lot of times that's what happens, is you will have that apathy, that just that almost that hopelessness that just comes along with it. Yeah.
So Michelle, if somebody's not sure what their core values are, how do you help them to go about finding what's really important to them? Because, it seems like a lot of people never really take the time to figure out who they are and what is really important. And I imagine you see that also. So how do you take a person who's coming to you and is lacking for, a better word than, for what they really want to do and, where those values are?
It's as simple as I've actually got cards that I use where we'll go through an exercise that each of those cards, and there's 48 of them, each of those cards will have a different value on there, and we'll figure out which resonates most with you, which do you feel the strongest about, and narrow it down to your top 5. And
wow.
those are going to be the ones that should truly be apparent within your life, because that's what you personally have deemed to be the most important. And when it comes to values, they're going to change from person to person. There are no good ones. There's no bad ones. It's what matters most to you and what you value. And what you value could be very different from one of your family members, could be very different from one of your friends. And it doesn't make it wrong or right. They're your values. It's what matters. And you're right, there's a lot of people that they go through life and they don't take the time to just stop. And literally that exercise takes less than 10 minutes. It doesn't take long for you to stop and figure out what truly is important to me. And once you figure that out, then what I ask people to do is take a look at the last 24 hours of your life. How have you lived out these values? How have they been a part of your life? And if you're telling me that this is what's important to you and you can't come up with examples of how you've lived that out, then I want you to truly start taking a look at what you are doing. Take a look at your calendar. What is it that you're scheduling in there that is taking the place of what you have decided is truly important for you? And can you start to incorporate more activities that will align with the values that you have? And that's one of the first things that I have my coaching clients do, is take a look, identify those core values, and then start to make sure that the time that they're spending, a good chunk of it lines up with those core values.
So Michelle, can values change?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And what I've seen is it's not going to be a huge shift. Usually you're reprioritizing things that have been important to you to begin with, but usually it's because of some type of real significant life-changing type of event. For example, when you have children. When you become a mother or a father, you are now responsible for this tiny little person, and you weren't before. And now all of a sudden you find this shift in, oh my goodness, I need to, I've got somebody to take care of and who's going to be relying on me. So I need to start shifting some of my priorities to make sure that I am available to take care of this person. And that's what happens, is you will have major changes happen in your life. And that's when you could have a shift. Whereas before, maybe it wasn't as important for you to spend time with family, but now that you have a baby, it is. And so that's what happens throughout the course of your life, is you will have these events and they will cause people to stop and say, what is really important to me right now? Has it changed? And it's okay. It's okay for them to shift. It's okay, because you're reevaluating what's going on in your life at that moment. And sometimes you do need to make a shift here and there.
So, I can totally relate with that, because when my kids were little, like, I felt like I was living my life for them.
Yep.
But do you also see that shift with women when they become empty nesters, that maybe for perhaps the first time in 20 or 30 years even, they are suddenly like, okay, now it's my turn?
Yes, and that's what happens is once you've done this fabulous job of being a parent and your children are off there on their own and they're productive members of society and they're doing all that good stuff that you taught them to do and you did a great job of raising them. Now what I find a lot of parents are doing is they're taking a look at themselves and saying, all right, I've been helping to grow this person. I need to start helping to grow myself. And a lot of times that's what happens is they start to focus on self-growth and personal growth. And I think you should always have a little bit of that going on in your life. I understand how it can take a back seat, especially when children are younger and need more supervision and more help. But once they're out, and then you can focus on who you are, and you can truly decide, hey, what do I want? What direction do I want to go in life now that it's just me that I'm looking out for?
Yeah, and I've seen that a lot of my clients, their kids are gone, and now it's when I'm gone, but they've grown, they've flown the nest, they're out being successful, and now it is their time. And so they struggle because it may have been 20 or 30 years since they even thought about themselves. And so I see that. And, I also tend to see that other side, that when you talked about the personal development, I think that being involved in personal development, basically my entire adult life, that helped me to be a better mom.
Yeah.
And it helped me to understand, what was really important, what values I thought my kids needed, to have in their lives.
I do understand that. And growth is not an option. We need to all be growing throughout our lives. Because if you're not growing, that means that you're withering away. That means that you're literally shrinking.
Yes, we never stay stagnant or stay the same. It's always growth or disintegration, really.
Exactly. And it's a choice that you have to make. There are a lot of people out there, and I used to see this when I was a trainer, and I would go out and do a lot of different trainings. I would ask people, how many of you know somebody who they either graduated from high school or they graduated from college, or they got that certificate or they got that license, and then they said, all right, that's it. I don't need to learn anything new. And you'd see a bunch of hands grow up, and then you'd ask them, what are those people doing? Has the world literally passed them by because they decided, they made the choice, I don't want to learn anymore. I don't want to grow anymore. And that's what happens in this day and age. Things move quickly, and you have to make a conscious choice to want to learn and grow, because otherwise, like I said, you're going to stagnate, you're going to start to wither, and you're not going to be in a happy place.
So, with that in mind, Michelle, one thing I kind of use as analogy as people have these goals or these big ideas that they want to do, and they graduate from high school or college and they're going to go do this, that, and the other thing, and then they hit that wall. And that wall, they can't get through, or they, have that fear or, worry about it. And so then they bounce off that wall and go back to where they were. And then maybe a little bit later, they'll try it again, but then they hit another wall or another roadblock gets in their way. And they don't understand that sometimes that's just a test to see how much you want to have that goal. So once that person has those values, how do you help them to accomplish the goal and the purpose that they may have in their lives, and to really, push through and, get through that wall or those obstacles that get in their way?
It's a process. And the first step is identifying what your values are. The second one is identifying what's your purpose. Why are you here? What is it that you are here to do? And that purpose will definitely align with what your goals are, with what your values are. But then I also want to know, what's your vision for yourself? 5 years from now, where do you want to be? And when you're living your purpose and you're living those values, you should be able to look down the road into the future and see, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to have. This is what I want to be. This is what I want to do. And so we write that out, we figure out what your vision is for your own future, and then we set the goals based on that vision that you have, because the goals are your stepping stone to get there. Your goals are your vehicle to move you from where you are now to that point in the future. And we make sure that they're going to line up with what your core values are. The cool part is you're going to be excited about them because A, you're setting them for yourself, and B, they align with where you want to be and what you want to do and where you want to go. And it's going to help motivate you to achieve those goals because it's moving you that much closer to that vision that you have for yourself. And a lot of people will think, oh, well, 5 years from now, I want to have, a certain amount of money. I want to have $1 million in the bank account, and I want to have that beach house, and I want to, retire, or fill in the blank. And once they figure out what that vision is and we start setting goals, what they find is because they're working towards that vision, it becomes a reality a lot sooner rather than later. And that's because we make sure that those goals are very purposeful in moving closer to achieving that vision.
I think a lot of times people don't realize that it's that constant looking at the goal, the constant visualizing it, that really makes it happen, because you have to get that belief.
Yes.
And, it's nice to think, oh, I'd love to make $500,000 or $1 million. But so often we're not the person we need to be in order to achieve that. And so we don't have that belief in ourselves, and it just is a wish or a dream, and it never really comes to happen. So how do you help people to, change who they are so that they really see themselves believing that they can accomplish their goal?
One of those obstacles that you were talking about is an obstacle of not feeling worthy of what it is that you want or who it is that you are. And that's one of the mental obstacles that people have to overcome. The reality is you're here for a reason. Whether you're a spiritual person and you believe in God, or you believe in the universe as a whole working towards you, you're here for a reason. You are here to accomplish a set purpose. And the more you work in that purpose and the more you do towards that purpose, the happier you're going to be, and the more that's going to come your way. Because you are worthy of that particular purpose, and you are worthy of achieving your goals through that purpose. And when people start to realize, yes, I am worthy, that's when the switch goes on in their mind. And that's when they start to realize, I can do this. I truly can do what I set out to do. They need to break through that particular boundary. They need to break through that obstacle of feeling that they're not worthy. Because once they do, one of the things that you find is everything you want is on the other side of that obstacle. So when you break through that obstacle and you realize just how worthy you truly are, that you wouldn't be here if you weren't. You wouldn't have this purpose if you weren't worthy of it, that you wouldn't be setting these goals and working towards them if you weren't worthy of them. So once you get on the other side of that, it opens up so much more for you. And one of the things that people realize after they begin to achieve the smaller short-term goals that they set for themselves, a lot of times people realize that the dream and vision that they have is way smaller than it could be.
Yeah. As my friend and mentor used to say, Bob Proctor, he used to say, once you get to your goal, you realize you could have gone so much further. Yeah. And so, everything we want is out there seeking us too.
Yes,
And
it
I
did.
think if we keep that in mind, that we're moving towards our goal as it's moving towards us
Mhm.
till we meet, that's a great way to look at it. So it doesn't make it seem so far beyond.
It's that law of attraction.
Yes,
What you put out there that you want is being attracted towards you. Now, it doesn't mean that you just get to sit there and just say, "This is what I want." You have to take action.
exactly.
That's what the goals are all about, is taking that action to move towards what it is that you want. And in the meantime, like you said, it's moving towards you.
Yeah.
So you're closing that gap. The more action you take, the closer you're getting.
So you were talking about breaking through boundaries. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I was just talking with a group of women on Tuesday evening about this, and there are different mental obstacles. Like I said, one of them is this feeling of worthiness. You've also got this one mental obstacle that things just aren't possible, but that's not true. Everything is possible. Anything is possible. If you think about just in our lifetimes, how people thought at one point in time something was impossible, and all of a sudden there it is. I think about technology and just how many possibilities there are with technology at this point, and how much change you have seen. So everything is possible. And that means that anything that I think of can be created. Anything that I think of can actually show up there in my life. And so that's one of the mental obstacles that we have to break through, is this thinking that, no, it's not possible for me to do that. That's not true. It's possible for you to do. It's possible for you to do so much more, because one of the other obstacles is scarcity. People think that there's only so much out there, and that's not true. The world is abundant. If you ever study physics, if you remember way back when in high school or in college, and you studied physics, you learned that matter is constantly being created. That matter is here. Things aren't necessarily created or destroyed. It's all here, and there's an abundance of it. It's just rearranging from one form to another. And what you think of and what you want, it's out there. I had once spoken with a group of bakers, and I told them, I said, people have a scarcity mindset. So they all go around thinking that there's only 8-inch pie plates. I said, you're a baker, you realize they make 9-inch pie plates and 10-inch pie plates, and you can keep growing that pie. And it's the same with everything else out there. Our world is abundant. And once you break through that scarcity mindset, that there's only so many customers, there's only so much money, there's only so many people out there that I'll be able to be around. Once you break through that and you realize, no, there's more than enough, that's when life becomes so much better for you.
When you were saying about, changes,
Mhm.
my one grandfather was born in 1897,
Mhm.
and he lived to be 95 years old. And
Yep.
he was in science, so he was a science teacher. And he just thought he had lived in the greatest time because of all the changes and all the inventions that he saw in his lifetime. And I often think of him, and what would he be thinking now? I mean, it's just everything's becoming so rapid. In fact, Darren Hardy says that, it's like 100 years is condensed into about 1 year now. And I mean, things are just changing so rapidly, and we really have to keep up with those changes. So how do you help people to keep moving forward, even when things are changing so much, it becomes a challenge also.
Well, and you're right, things are changing a lot. And for some people, that gets overwhelming. They're just like, oh, there's too much change going on in the world and in their lives. And I understand, because with the internet, think about social media, you're constantly bombarded by information. So one of the things that I strongly suggest is, you're in control of how you spend your time. So that means you're in control of how much time you're in front of a television, how much time you're in front of a computer, how much time you're in front of your phone. They actually have on and off switches, believe it or not. You can turn them off, and you can control how much information you are being exposed to at any given time. When the world starts to feel overwhelming to you, that's when it's time for you to push the technology aside. Just sit down someplace calm and relaxing and spend, 15, 30 minutes just decompressing from all of the messages that are coming to you, and just, do some deep breathing exercises, do a little bit of meditation. If you want to stretch and do some yoga, that's good too. If you're somebody who is religious and wants to do some prayer, that's a good thing too. But sometimes you just got to step away from it all so that you can recenter and you can clear your mind and you can get to some place that's peaceful and calm, where you can listen to what's going on inside, because there's a lot going on inside that you need to listen to. And you can just exhale and feel the worries of the world starting to slip away. And it's not as overwhelming for you at that point.
And I think you made a really good point there, Michelle, that we are in control.
We are.
And if we're not in control, we have to learn how to shift that, because we can't allow the world to control us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what so many people are doing. And they're allowing, themselves to be a plaything for the world. Yeah, and, we have to learn to control and realize that, we can take that power.
Well, you control your time. And if you don't, your time will control you.
Exactly.
And it's the same with people in your lives. If you don't decide what your priorities are and what you're going to work on, other people will do that for you. They're more than happy to do it for you. So take back control of your time, take back control of your life, take back control of how you're spending that time, because it's yours. And you have a choice in how you're going to spend it.
Okay, Michelle, in the last couple of minutes we have here, how can people get in touch with you, or maybe you have something special that you want to share with them?
Sure. The easiest way is to go to my website, ateagueofyourown.com. And actually, if you go there to my website now, you're going to find that you can get a free worksheet with core values on it. So we had talked about that earlier, helping to figure out what matters most to you, what your core values are. You go to my website, ateagueofyourown.com. You will find that there is indeed a core values worksheet there. There's a couple other freebies on there too, but all you got to do is go there to ateagueofyourown.com, click on the gift tab, and you'll find the core values worksheet. You'll find some brainstorming activities, checklists for engaging meetings, and disc profile cards. Lots of goodies that can be helpful in developing your own growth.
I think if I put the HTTPS.
Yes. Yeah, it's ateagueofyourown.com. No www in front of it, just ateagueofyourown.com. And from there, you can actually email me, you can call me, my number's on there, you can text me, let me know how I can best help you.
There we go. Now it's going to light up, so you can just go to that. Yes. That sounds wonderful, and to understand those values and to get those free gifts. I encourage everybody to go to ateagueofyourown.com and get Michelle's gift for today.
Yes.
Okay, this is Patricia Stepler with Your Inside Power. Join us next week when we will have another guest, Cheyenne Kramer, who will come and share some powerful things that you can also do from using your inside powers.